As a freelancer, you deserve to be paid for your work, and you deserve to be paid on time. If you're new around here, I'm Charlie and I'm a designer. I know firsthand that getting paid on time can be a real headache for freelancers. I hear stories of clients paying invoices 3 months late, or worse, just not even paying them at all. But the good news is there are things we can do to avoid this and to increase our chances of getting paid on time. And that's why I'm here with this new series. In this 3-video series, you'll learn best practices for setting up a good payment schedule, invoicing, receiving money, and communicating with your clients. This series has kindly been sponsored by TransferWise, which is the service that I personally use to get paid by clients. They make it really easy to send and receive money internationally with a much better exchange rate and lower fees than a bank would charge. We'll talk more about them in the next video about receiving payments, but for now, in this video, to kick things off with the start of the process, let's talk about setting up a payment schedule. A payment schedule defines when a client needs to pay an invoice. Now, traditionally, people have treated working with freelancers kind of like paying a bill, where they'll receive an invoice after the service is done, and then they'll pay it, maybe within 30 days if you're lucky, because invoices are notoriously paid late. This way of working really sucks for the freelancer. Not only are you waiting a month or more to get paid for work you've already done, but it's really exhausting to be chasing clients and asking them to pay you, which is something they should just be doing in the first place. But clients are often just not very motivated to pay you very quickly because they've already received the work from you. But one of the most important things I ever learned about freelancing is that just because that's the way most people have worked in the past, it doesn't have to be the way that you work. You can set up your own payment schedule and terms in a way that will help you get paid in a much more timely manner. Let me tell you more about that. My payment schedule is generally a 50% initial payment upfront, and then the remaining 50% at the end of the project before I send over the final files. And sometimes if the job is a fairly small one, I will just charge the whole amount upfront. And yes, you are allowed to do this. If a client wants to work with you, they will follow these terms because it's actually better for everybody. Getting them to pay a 50% sum upfront means that they're committed to the project, and it means you can safely block out that time in your calendar knowing that the client is serious about it and you're going to get paid. And if the client pays the initial payment late, then the project starts late. So if they've got a deadline to meet, they're going to pay you on time. So that initial payment is really important for starting the project out on a professional note and setting the right tone, but it's the timing of that final payment that's the major key to being paid on time. You should definitely set your payment schedule so that the last invoice must be paid before you can deliver the final files to the client. Now, of course, you're going to show them proofs beforehand, and this is only going to happen once they're happy with the work and it's all approved, but any final assets that they're going to end up using should be delivered after payment. The thing is, if you hand over the files before they've paid you, the client will have no incentive whatsoever to make that payment in a timely manner. Whereas if they need to pay the invoice in order to get the files that they need, they'll do it, especially if there's a deadline to meet. Side note, I know this sounds kind of hostile as I'm explaining it, but I promise it's not. It's just professional. So how do you go about setting up a payment schedule? Well, the first thing you have to do is decide which percentage split you're going to do. The 50-50, like I said, works really well for me, so it might be a good place to start, and then you can adjust from there if your jobs are bigger or smaller and you find yourself having different needs. Make sure you lay that payment schedule out in your contract and talk your client through it so that they know when they're expected to pay. If you help them understand the process once they sign that contract, that's just how things are going to work for this project, and you can know that you're both on board. This way there won't be any surprises when at the end of the project you're sending them an invoice before you send them the final files. And I always say it in a really friendly manner too. I'll send the invoice along when we're nearing the end of the project so that they've got time to pay it before the deadline, and just say, here's the final invoice, remember I can't release the files to you until you've paid it, so I thought I'd send it along now so that you've got time to sort it out. So to sum up, set your terms so that you get paid a portion at the start of a project and the rest at the end before you send the files, and be upfront and clear about this with your client. If these are your terms, then you have to stick with them, and don't be tempted to start a project before that first payment comes through just because there's a tight deadline to meet. If the client wants to meet that deadline, they're going to have to pay you immediately, and that's just the way it goes. Remember, the client is hiring you as the professional, so they need to follow your process. You don't get to decide when you pay the dentist or that you're going to pay for your meal 2 weeks after you've eaten it. So there's no reason why a client can't pay you on your terms for a design project. We're going to talk more about how to handle objections in this process in the last video, but coming up next, I want to talk to you about invoicing and receiving money. So click here to watch that, and thanks for watching.